Hey, Union County, we're having a conversation today for Center for Human Development, or as what most of us know, CHD. And this is a conversation about Angelman syndrome, and the conversation is coming out of the Developmental Disabilities Department. And I just want to introduce to you Marcie and Casey. How are you guys today?
We're good.
Yeah.
You good?
Very that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
So before this, before we started talking about doing this, I had no idea what Angelman syndrome even was. So why don't we start there? Kind of give me, you give me an idea of how does that translate into your life? What does that mean for you?
Well, it's pretty rare. It's about 1 in 28,000 children are diagnosed with Angelman's every year, and usually around the ages of 2 to 3 years old. In our case, we had never heard of it either. It was still pretty new. He was about 3 when he was diagnosed, and we had been through a gamut of things, that he had cerebral palsy, that he had muscular dystrophy, that he had lots of things. And there was another parent actually at a therapy program that brought it up and said, I think you need to have him tested. And because their child had been tested for it. And sure enough, there it was.
Wow. And why did they call it Angelman syndrome?
So it was discovered, I guess, by Dr. Harry Angelman, and it was early 60s. Prior to that, he had been doing studies with children and adults that had similar issues, cerebral palsy type issues, and they were all being misdiagnosed. So he just did more of the lab work and the footwork towards breaking it down genetically to find out whether that's what each of these folks had.
And so, how is it different from cerebral palsy?
So he has, Angelman's kids have genetic mutations of their 15th chromosome. So that's kind of your motor skills stuff, walking and talking. And in his case, he is missing the whole chromosome, whereas some of these kids have just a different kind of mutation. And so there's very varied parts of it. Some of it's gone, some of it's completely gone. Mm-hmm. In his case, it's completely missing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so, how does he want to drink of water?
I think he wants the water.
Oh, that's good.
You want that?
Yeah. How was that when he was a kid? I mean, what are some of the things that so did he have physical limitations in his movement when he was young?
He did.
Okay.
We had normal pregnancy. There was no problems. I just, they considered me a high risk from issues prior to him. We just took it a day at a time. There was no problems up to that point. Labor was fine, no issues. About 6 months old, when babies starting their milestones, we noticed that he was kind of delayed and stuff, and we just kind of chalked it up. Each kid's different. And then about 10 months, he started having seizures. And so we went to a developmental doctor, and we were living in Boise at the time. And he said, he may grow out of it, because a lot of children have seizures early on, and then they grow out of it. And as time went on, and he said he's definitely developmentally delayed. So, a lot of kids have that and pick back up. So we weren't worried, we just took care of the seizure problems. Then we started putting him into therapy and just treating it like, it's something we got to work on. And then the seizures progressively got worse. The milestones really started dropping off, and we noticed a lot of different characteristics. And again, it was so new, nobody had really even heard about it. And like I said, at that therapy program, the other mom said this, just sitting and watching him, he acts a lot like her daughter did. And the same doctor we actually went to for his seizures had diagnosed 7 kids at the time in the Treasure Valley with Angelman syndrome. So we thought, it's a blood test. We might as well do it.
Right.
And they did it, and sure enough.
So, and I'm sorry for my ignorance, but how did defining the difference between cerebral palsy and Angelman, how did that help? I mean, was the treatment different, or did it just kind of help settle in your? I mean, how did that help you?
That was more of it, I think, than anything, because we were so lost as to what are we striving for here?
Right.
You know, if we had a name to it, then we could, then we knew where to point. You know, and it's very similar to cerebral palsy. A lot of them have issues with walking and equilibrium, and I think about 10% is what I've seen recently that don't walk ever. He's kind of in the low percentile. He walks with help, but he doesn't walk on his own. And I think a lot of that is fear of seizures. He's fallen so many times because of seizure activity that he's kind of spooked.
Yeah.
But he's shocked us a time or two too when he gets tired of waiting for what we are helping him with, and he just gets up and motates himself. So it's kind of up to him, you know, whenever he feels like going, he goes. But for the most part, it's hands-on with him. We need to help him walk, but a lot of his milestones were just delayed by a few years. He didn't learn to sit up till he was about 2.5. He really didn't learn to crawl until his little brother came along and started watching how other kids are cruising and moving and pulling himself up onto furniture like babies do. After being around his brother, he picked up a lot of that just watching.
Oh.
And so I basically had 2 toddlers, you know, going at once. So yeah, it was a challenge at times, but he's just gradually keeps, you know, going at his own pace and becoming more independent every day.
Well, so you're 23 now.
24.
24. Okay.
Yep.
And he's nonverbal. Is that right?
Nonverbal, yep.
So now, how does he tell you what he needs or wants? I mean, he's able to point.
Yep.
Or,
He uses pointing for a lot of things, and of course, just growing up with him, we just kind of have learned our own languages and you know, eye contact, noises in his voice. You know, do you want this? And he'll kind of smirk and kind of giggle, you know. And so you just kind of pick up on it. But for the most part, you know, we have communication boards with pictures on them that he can point to what he wants. Unfortunately, with seizure activity, a lot of that gets kind of knocked out with a lot of kids, where they it almost kind of wipes their slate, you know. So you're kind of fighting a battle with seizure control and you know, memory control. A lot of their short term is pretty sharp, but they remember people that they met 3 years ago too. So I mean, it's kind of, it depends on the severity of their seizures. Luckily, we're very super thankful that his are under control, and because he did have a really hard few years, you know, with uncontrolled seizures, and unfortunately that probably knocked him back learning wise a few years. So it's just gradually building him back up. Yeah.
So we're doing this video on behalf of CHD.
Yes.
And how, you know, appreciate you being willing to do this.
Oh,
and to talk
absolutely.
about this. Yeah. So how has the CHD programs been able to help you guys?
It's been life-changing. It really has, especially for Case, because, you know, unfortunately when COVID hit, he graduated from Imbler in 2017, and then they can stay until they're 21 in the school program. Well, COVID hit right before he was done with his last year of school, I guess. So we made the decision to take him out and, you know, just keep him at home, safety-wise. And then we, you know, of course, everything kind of shut down. And he's such a social butterfly. He loves everybody. And he was such a fixture at school that it really knocked him down. COVID took being out of the public, going into the store and that kind of thing. He missed it. He missed people.
Right.
And he kind of regressed a little bit, where he didn't want to do things and didn't want to, you know, he just kind of like almost depressed. And so we got in contact with CHD about their day programs, and since we put him in there, he's a whole different kid. He's just super happy. He loves to see his people there, his friends. We tell him his friends are coming and they're going to pick him up, and he gets so excited, and he's just happy. He's a different kid. So it's really made a huge difference in his life as far as being, he's an independent adult.
Right.
He can do things. He can get away from the family and go hang out with his friends like, we did when we were teenagers, kind of thing. He never had that ability. And so, other than being at school. So this has been a huge help. I mean, he's wanting to be more independent to do things for himself, wanting to, it's just a huge change. It's helped him a ton.
So tell me how did they specifically, what do they specifically do to help you? I mean, do they offer transportation or?
Yeah, they do.
Give me that, yeah.
So when I'm at work, they pick him up and take him to whatever program they're doing that day. They go out into the public, they go to shows, they go to the park, just lots of different things to get him out and getting the socialization. And so, they pick him up, drop him off. We try to help out and drop him off if we can, just try to it's like a big community of people. And there's nothing nicer for a family and, parents especially that, it's an unknown, you're still, it's like having a baby going to daycare the first time.
Right.
It's scary to send them out into the world because you've always been their advocate. And so, it did, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time to talk myself into letting him get out and do this, and I'm so glad that we did because, like I said, it's been a huge improvement, and he's just happier kid.
Yeah. Are there other parents that are kind of in your situation that you're able to connect with?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so nice to be in a smaller community for that reason, that we can all feel like we can talk to each other about, hey, do you know of these services, or do you know how to get in touch with? And that's what's so nice is being able to steer them in the right direction, because people are in the same situation.
Right. Yeah.
And just because we're not a bigger city or any of that, it doesn't mean that we don't have those services for these people, adults and kids. And it's really important for them to be included, just like you and I going out and having dinner or whatever. They have the right to go out and hang out with their friends and, go to, they go to dances, they go to social events all together and with the other community groups. And it's just a really nice thing for these guys to have.
I would imagine, being able to mix with other parents who can understand your situation. They live it also. I would imagine that is meaningful for you.
It is. It's nice to bounce things off other people because, whether your child has a severe disability or just mild, hearing it from other people, sometimes it's a nice change. You're not getting it just from a doctor. You're not getting it from your family.
Yes.
They're biased.
Right.
You're getting it from an outside source that can maybe give you some insight. Hey, we tried this. Maybe you should try it, or get in contact with these people. It's huge. It's a huge hub to have, and it's nice to have that we can all communicate and help each other out, because it takes a village is a literal statement sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's just like having that community in your kids' school. You can trust people with your children. They're safe in that place, and it's nice to have that connection with other people. That these guys are going to be safe where they go, and everybody's got questions. Everybody's heard stories. Everybody's heard. There's always good and bad to everything, and we've had nothing but a great experience, and I couldn't push it more for kids and adults that need a change, something to do. And it gives mom and dad a chance to take a break. It's the other issue is, sometimes it's hard to find folks that you trust to take care of your kids. Right. And whether they have a disability or not, mom and dad need a time to run away and have dinner and come back just for a couple hours. This is perfect for that situation. They're hanging out with their friends, and you can go out for a few hours, get stuff done, and everybody's safe, everybody's happy, and it's just a great community to have.
So along the way, have there been some things that have surprised you that Casey has been able to do?
Oh, everything Case does surprises me.
Yeah.
It's just, we've never treated him any different than our other child. And so he experiences everything that we do. He loves to go fishing. He goes shed hunting with his brother and his brother's friends. And, he's been hunting with us. He's been, he goes swimming all the time. When he was at Embler, all of his friends just treated him like another classmate, and he was treated so good and loved by everybody. And prom king one year, he was quite Mr. Pop. That one surprised me. And graduation was a big deal because he was almost walking by himself, which was a huge accomplishment. The aides that helped him out there were amazing. They were like, other moms to him. And the kids didn't treat these guys any different than you and I. And that is huge for, a little community. Everybody knows him, everybody loves him, and you have that trust as well that, if they saw something weird going down, they're going to contact you, and let you know, just like our kids every day. And, it was huge to have that, that small town kind of community to, help raise your kids because they're just like any other kid. And that says a lot about the parents raising these kids too, is that they're teaching these kids that there's no discrimination against somebody that just can't walk,
Right.
Everybody has some kind of a disability, in a sense, if you really think.
Right.
If you don't like math, you can't do math, you have a hard time reading, it doesn't make you any different than the other guy sitting next to you. And he was very, he's just loved everywhere he goes, and it doesn't matter if it's the gals at Smokehouse that love him or Denny's, he knows everybody everywhere, and they all love him. And so that's huge for me as a parent, as a, part of the community, that your community is supportive like that of your child, and that these other adults and kids are going to be treated with respect and love wherever they go. So that's a huge thing.
Good. So for other adults or parents that are first experiencing these kinds of things, is there anything that you would want to tell them? Any advice that you might want to pass on to them?
I think the biggest advice is, stick with your gut, because if you know your kid better than anybody else does. And we did have some trial and error with docs as he was being treated and everything, and you're their advocate, you're their voice, and you don't, I'm not bad mouthing, but it's what's best for your kid, and or your family member, and if they don't have that advocacy from you and your family and supporters, they're going to get lost in the mix. And that's definitely, I definitely have the mama bear syndrome, and that's with with both my kids, but especially when you have somebody telling you one thing about your child, you're scared to death because you don't want to hear the bad news. Once you've got it, okay, we're going to move on to the next thing, and how do we fight it?
Right.
And it's hard to step out of that parent role and listen to the doc. What is he going to tell me? He should know everything. Sometimes it's best to listen to your gut, and listen to, I just don't know if that's going to work. That doesn't feel right. Worst thing that can happen is you go back to what they have brought up, and you try it again. But it's definitely been trial and error with him, and whether it's therapy or medications or just treatments in general, you know your kid, and don't hesitate to question. Questioning a doctor isn't a bad thing, because that's how you learn.
Right.
And a lot of them, some might not like it being questioned, but you're right as a parent and as an advocate, because that's how you learn to take care of your child the best way.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done in the past. And, you know, like I said, I haven't been liked for it for some, you know, different doctors, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for, you know, kind of testing the waters and kind of pushing, you know, and do your own research.
Right.
You know, that's especially when Angelman syndrome was still pretty new. The internet was still pretty new, and so everything we had from the internet was still kind of wonky, you know. And you know, they told us in the very beginning only blonde hair, blue-eyed kids had that diagnosis. Well, there's redheads and there's you know, Hispanic kids, black kids. I mean, it doesn't discriminate against anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and they're all just amazing kids, but you
Yeah.
can see their characteristics, and you can see, and you know, that's the other thing is the I guess social media groups on Facebook. We have tons of family on Angelman family on Facebook, you know, and we all bounce questions off each other. And hey, you know, I have an adult son. How are you dealing with this?
Yeah.
You know, it's so nice to have that bounce off, you know, because you're struggling. Your family's not dealt with it either.
Right.
And in a rare situation like Case, there's folks around here that they're similar. It's a similar case, but it's not what he's dealing with.
Yeah.
So it's nice to bounce that off other people, you know, and it's nice to have that kind of distant family,
Right.
you know, because you kind of grow close to their angels as well. And so we just have an extended family of Angelman families, which is nice.
Very cool. So what would you say to parents that they're looking around for help and they've reached out to CHD or they're thinking about CHD? What would you say to encourage them?
It can't hurt.
Yeah.
The more answers you get, there are no stupid questions. You know, I'm really good about writing down everything I'm thinking about asking, especially going to, you know, meetings and stuff. And the only way you're going to find out is, you know, getting out of that safe space.
Yeah.
You know, there are great programs everywhere, and it's just a matter of tracking down the right person that can help you find it. And we've had nothing but wonderful people help us at CHD especially since he's been an adult. It's a whole nother world once they
Right.
go from being a kid to an adult. And, you know, so many changes and other issues that you don't even think about. So it's nice to have that advocate on that end, and your caseworker and your folks that help. They can lead you down the right path to get to where you need to go. You know?
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
being here. Thank you, Casey, for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and thank you guys for tuning in. And again, if you have more questions about this, you can reach out to the information that's on the screen, and Center for Human Development, and specifically Developmental Disabilities area, will help answer your questions. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.